Okay, this is Kabbalah Wisdom. Hope you're enjoying this recording. The Philosophy of William James, Chapter 1, Philosophy and the Philosopher. Philosophy and Philosophical Teaching in the United States. The philosophical teaching, as a rule in our higher seminaries, is in the hands of the president, who is usually a minister of the gospel, and as he more often owes his position to general excellence of character and administrative faculty than to any speculative gifts or propensities, it usually follows that safeness becomes the main characteristic of his tuition, that his classes are edified rather than awakened, and leave college with the generous youthful impulse to reflect on the world and our position in it, rather dampened and discouraged than stimulated by the lifeless discussions and flabby formulas they have had to commit to memory. Let it not be supposed that we are prejudging the question whether the final results of speculation will be friendly or hostile to the formulas of Christian thought. All we contend for is that we, like the Greeks and the Germans, should now attack things as if there were no official answer preoccupying the field. At present, we are bribed beforehand by our reverence or dislike for the official answer. We work with one eye on our problem and with the other on the consequences to our enemy or to our lawgiver. As the case may be, the result in both cases is mediocrity. If the best use of our colleges is to give young men a wider openness of mind and a more flexible way of thinking than special technical training can generate, then we hold that philosophy, taken in the broad sense in which our correspondent uses the word, is the most important of all college studies. However skeptical one may be of the attainment of universal truths, and to make our position more emphatic, we are willing here to concede the extreme positivistic position. One can never deny that philosophic study means the habit of always seeing an alternative, of not taking the usual for granted. One can never deny that philosophic study means the habit of always seeing an alternative, of not taking the usual for granted, of making conventionalities fluid again, of imagining foreign states of mind. In a word, it means the possession of mental perspective. Touchstone's question, "Hast any philosophy in thee, shepherd?" will never cease to be one of the tests of a well-born nature. It says, "Is there space and air in your mind? Or must your companions gasp for breath whenever they talk with you?" And if our colleges are to make men and not machines, they should look above all things to this aspect for their influence. As for philosophy, technically so called, or the reflection of man on his relations with the universe, its educational essence lies in the quickening of the spirit to its problems. What doctrines students take from the teachers are of little consequence, provided they catch from them the living philosophic attitude of mind. One can never deny that philosophic study means the habit. What doctrines students take from the teachers are of little consequence, provided they catch from them the living philosophic attitude of mind, the independent personal look at all the data of life, and the eagerness to harmonize them. In short, philosophy, like Molière, claims her own where she finds it. She finds much of it today in physics and natural history, and must and will educate herself accordingly. Radical empiricism as a philosophic attitude. At most of our American colleges, there are clubs formed by the students devoted to particular branches of learning, and these clubs have the laudable custom of inviting once or twice a year some maturer scholar to address them, the occasion often being made a public one. I have from time to time accepted such invitations and afterwards had my discourse printed in one or other of the reviews. They shed explanatory light upon each other and taken together express a tolerably definite philosophic attitude in a very untechnical way. What doctrines students take from the teachers are of little consequence. Were I obliged to give a short name to the attitude in question, I should call it that of radical empiricism, in spite of the fact that such brief nicknames are nowhere more misleading than in philosophy. I say empiricism because it is contended to regard its most assured conclusions concerning matters of fact as hypotheses liable to modification in the course of future experience, And I say radical because it treats the doctrine of monism itself as an hypothesis, and unlike so much of the halfway empiricism that is current under the name of positivism, or agnosticism, or scientific naturalism, it does not dogmatically affirm monism as something with which all experience has got to square. The difference between monism and pluralism is perhaps the most pregnant of all the differences in philosophy. Prima facie, the world is a pluralism. As we find it, its unity seems to be that of any collection, and our higher thinking consists chiefly of an effort to redeem it from that first crude form. Postulating more unity than the first experiences yield, we also discover more, but absolute unity, in spite of brilliant dashes in its direction, still remains undiscovered, still remains a Grenzbegriff, ever not quite. Must be the rationalistic philosopher's last confession concerning it. After all that reason can do has been done, there still remains the opacity of the finite facts as merely given, with most of the peculiarities mutually unmediated and unexplained. To the very last, there are the various points of view which the philosopher must distinguish in discussing the world, and what is inwardly clear from one point remains a bare externality and datum to the other. The negative, the illogical, is never wholly banished. Something, call it fate, chance, freedom, spontaneity, the devil, what you will, is still wrong and other and outside and unincluded from your point of view, even though you... Postulating more unity than the first experiences yield. The negative, the illogical, is never wholly banished. Something, call it fate, chance, freedom, spontaneity, the devil, what you will, is still wrong in other and outside and unincluded from your point of view, even though you be the greatest of philosophers. Something is always mere fact and giveness, and there may be in the whole universe no one point of view extant from which this would not be found to be the case. Reason, as a gifted writer says, is but one item in the mystery. Behind the proudest consciousness that ever reigned, reason and wonder blushed face to face. The inevitable stales while doubt and hope are sisters. Not unfortunately, the universe is wild, game-flavored as a hawk's wing. Nature is miracle of all. The same returns not saved to bring the different. Slow round of the engraver's lathe gains but the breadth of a hair, but the difference is distributed back over the whole curve, never an instant true, ever not quite. Negative, This is pluralism, somewhat rhapsodically expressed. He who takes for his hypothesis the notion that it is the permanent form of the world is what I call a radical empiricist. For him, the crudity of experience remains an eternal element thereof. There is no possible point of view from which the world can appear an absolutely single fact. Real possibilities, real interminations, real beginnings, real ends, real evil, real crises, catastrophes, and escapes, a real God, and a real moral life. Just as common sense conceives these things may remain in empiricism as conceptions that philosophy gives up the attempt either to overcome or to reinterpret in monistic form. Why men philosophize? What is the task which philosophers set themselves to perform, and why do they philosophize at all? Almost everyone will immediately reply they desire to attain a conception of the frame of things. This is pluralism, somewhat. They desire to attain a conception of the frame of things which shall on the whole be more rational than that somewhat chaotic view which everyone by nature carries about with him under his hat. But suppose this rational conception attained, how is the philosopher to recognize it for what it is, and not let it slip through ignorance? The only answer can be that he will recognize its rationality as he recognizes everything else, by certain subjective marks with which it affects him. When he gets the marks, he may know that he has got the rationality. What then are the marks? Strong feeling of ease, peace, rest is one of them. The transition from a state of puzzle and perplexity to rational comprehension is full of lively relief and pleasure. But this relief seems to be a negative rather than a positive character. Shall we then say that the feeling of rationality is constituted merely by the absence of any feeling of irrationality? I think there are very good grounds for upholding such a view. All feeling whatever, in the light of certain recent psychological speculations, seems to depend for its physical condition not on simple discharge of nerve currents, but on the discharge under arrest, impediment, or resistance. Just as we feel no particular pleasure when we breathe freely, but a very intense feeling of distress when the respiratory motions are prevented, so any unobstructed tendency to action discharges itself without the production of much cogitative accompaniment, and any perfectly fluent course of thought awakens but little feeling. But when the movement is inhibited, or when the thought meets with difficulties, we experience distress. It is only when the distress is upon us that we can be said to strive, to crave, or to aspire. When enjoying plenary freedom, either in the way of motion or of thought, we are in a sort of anesthetic state in which we might say with Walt Whitman, if we cared to say anything about ourselves at such times, I am sufficient as I am. This feeling of the sufficiency of the present moment, of its absoluteness, this absence of all need to explain it, account for it, or justify it, is what I call the sentiment of rationality. As soon, in short, as we are enabled from any cause whatever to think with perfect fluency, the thing we think of seems to us pro tanto rational. Whatever modes of conceiving the cosmos facilitate this fluency produce the sentiment of rationality, conceived in such modes being vouches for itself and needs no further philosophic formulation. To sum up, no philosophy will permanently be deemed rational by all men, which, in addition to meeting logical demands, does not to some degree pretend to determine expectancy, and in a still greater degree make a direct appeal to all those powers of our nature which we hold in highest esteem. Faith, being one of these powers, will always remain a factor not to be banished from philosophic constructions, the more so since in many ways it brings forth its own verification. In these points, then, it is hopeless to look for literal agreement among mankind. The ultimate philosophy, we may therefore conclude, must not be too straight-laced in form, must not in all its parts divide heresy from orthodoxy by too sharp a line. There must be left over and above the propositions to be subscribed, ubique semper et ab omnibus, another realm into which the stifled soul may escape from pedantic scruples and indulge its own faith at its own risks. And all that can here be done will be to mark out distinctly the questions which fall within faith's sphere. The meaning of radical empiricism. Philosophy and the philosopher, the philosophy of William James. I give the name of radical empiricism to my Weltanschauung. Empiricism is known as the opposite of rationalism. Rationalism tends to emphasize universals and to make wholes prior to parts in the order of logic as well as in that of being. Indeed. Empiricism, on the contrary, lays the explanatory stress upon the part, the element, the individual, and treats the whole as a collection, and the universal as an abstraction. My description of things accordingly starts with the parts and makes of the whole a being of the second order. It is essentially a mosaic philosophy, a philosophy of plural facts like that of Hume and his descendants, who refer these facts neither to substances in which they inhere, nor to an absolute mind that creates them as it objects, but it differs from the Humean type of empiricism in one particular, which makes me add the epithet radical. To be radical, an empiricism must neither admit into its constructions any element that is not directly experienced, nor excluded from them any element that is directly experienced. For such a philosophy, the relations that connect experiences must themselves be experienced relations, and any kind of relation experienced must be accounted as real as anything else in the system. Elements may indeed be redistributed, the original placing of things getting corrected, but a real place must be found for every kind of thing. I am interested in another doctrine in philosophy to which I give the name of radical empiricism, and it seems to me that the establishment of the pragmatist theory of truth is a step of first-rate importance in making radical empiricism prevail. Radical empiricism consists first of a postulate, next of a statement of fact, and finally of a generalized conclusion. The postulate is that the only things that shall be debatable among philosophers shall be things definable in terms drawn from experience. Things of an unexperienceable nature may exist ad libitum, but they form no part of the material for philosophic debate. The statement of fact is that the relations between things, conjunctive as well as disjunctive, are just as much matters of direct particular experience, neither much so nor less so than the things themselves. The generalized conclusion is that therefore the parts of experience hold together from next to next by relations that are themselves parts of experience. The directly apprehended universe needs, in short, no extraneous trans-empirical connective support. The directly apprehended universe needs, in short, no extraneous trans-empirical connective support, but possesses in its own right a concatenated or continuous structure. Chapter 2, the world we live in, the original chaos. The world's contents are given to each of us in an order so foreign to our subjective interests that we can hardly by an effort of the imagination picture to ourselves what it is like. We have to break that order altogether, and by picking out from it the items which concern us and connecting them with others far away, which we say belong with them, we are able to make out definite threads of sequence and tendency, to foresee particular liabilities and get ready for them, and to enjoy simplicity and harmony in place of what was chaos. Is not the sum of your actual experience taken at this moment and impartially added together in utter chaos? The strains of my voice, the lights and shades inside the room and out, the murmur of the wind, the ticking of the clock. The directly apprehended universe needs, in short, the strains of my voice, the lights and shades inside the room and out, the murmur of the wind, the ticking of the clock, the various organic feelings you may happen individually to possess, do these make a whole at all? Is it not the only condition of your mental sanity in the midst of them that most of them should become non-existent for you, and that a few others, the sounds I hope which I am uttering, should evoke from places in your memory that have nothing to do with this scene associates, fitted to combine with them in what we call a rational train of thought. Rational because it leads to a conclusion which have some organ to appreciate? We have no organ or faculty to appreciate the simply given order. The real world as it is given objectively at this moment is the sum total of all its beings and events now. But can we think of such a sum? Can we realize for an instant what a cross-section of all existence at a definite point of time would be? While I talk and the flies buzz, a seagull catches a fish at the mouth of the Amazon. While I talk and the flies buzz, a seagull catches a fish at the mouth of the Amazon. A tree falls in the Adirondack wilderness. A man sneezes in Germany. A horse dies in Tartary. And twins are born in France. What does that mean? Does the contemporaneity of these events with one another and with a million others as disjointed form a rational bond between them, and unite them into anything that means for us a world, yet just such a collateral contemporaneity, and nothing else is the real order of the world? It is an order with which we have nothing to do but to get away from it as fast as possible. As I said, we break it. We break it into histories, and we break it into arts, and we break it into sciences, and then we begin to feel at home. We make 10,000 separate serial orders of it, and not any one of these we react as though the others did not exist. We discovered among its various parts relations that were never given to sense at all, mathematical relations, tangents, squares and roots, and logarithmic functions. While I talk and the flies buzz, a seagull catches a fish in the mouth of the Amazon, a tree falls in Adirondack wilderness.
About a thing, too few. Only in town for a night, so I ain't.
اوكي لخولة خدخد شلي لخولة خدخد شلي بس ايد معي that's right
Slay.
oh man
Wait 1 second, Rabbi. So you was debating Jay Dyer?
I didn't debate Jay Dyer. I did go on his show.
You did?
Yeah, but he killed it. Like I couldn't even get a point across. I wanted to talk to him about libertarianism because he believes libertarianism is antithetical to orthodoxy, and it's like, okay, I agree with this guy's theological positions perfectly. I've never heard him say anything I disagree with, but he's saying libertarianism goes against orthodoxy, but I'm a hardcore libertarian. So that then must mean, if I agree with you theologically 100%, that then must mean you don't understand libertarianism. So I said, you know what? I'm going to talk to this schmuck about libertarianism. And he just shut it down.
So, I mean, what does liberty mean to you? Because isn't the root of libertarianism the concept of, or the source of liberty?
No, it's just more...
He kicked me.
You know, it's so funny. Like, we had a stupid discussion.
That he said he would fuck a 9-year-old earlier.
That's true, yeah. But that's what's the argument that... no, I'm joking. No, but, you know, you don't remember this back in the day? Like, we were having some stupid discussion about absolutely nothing, and then you just, like, turned into this, like, fucking grammar Nazi, where you started asking me about, what are they called? Like, syntax trees or something, or, like, grammar trees or some shit.
Yeah, he asked us to, like, break down a sentence.
No, even before that one, that was, like, the third or fourth time he had done that. I think he even did it to Mark one night.
Okay.
Like, him and Mark had a dispute about something he didn't. That was just, like, his tactic for a while, where he'd just, like, say that. Whenever someone would, like, challenge him on something, he'd just, like, start embarrassing them about their English. I must have been, like, hella drunk.
Yeah, that's pretty likely.
Yeah, well.
I brought up a philosophical topic of, like, masculinity and our relationship to it. Instead of that, we're like, yeah, let's keep talking about, like, stupid bullshit.
Okay, we don't want to be lectured about fucking masculinity from the guy in the fucking kimono, okay? With the
Yeah, obviously masculinity is not important to me.
reading glasses.
Obviously not important to me. I'm asking if it's important to you
Stop
guys.
talking about it then.
No, I mean, we can do.
You're right. If you're not something, you can't. If you don't value something, you can't be curious about how other people value things. That's a good point.
Oh,
Has anybody here watched You before?
I watched what, sorry?
You,
You let her.
like the show on Netflix.
You're talking about
the serial killer one.
yeah, this killer from the books.
I think I watched a few episodes. It's like bullshit.
The new season is coming out, so it's pretty good.
Oh, see, this is the one where he locks his missus in the fucking
Yeah.
in the cage or some shit, in the plexiglass cage. Wait, but yeah, masculinity is a good thing, Sam. It's not toxic at all. In fact, it's the opposite. We should fill the rivers and the sea with it.
Gross.
It's
Oh yeah,
eco-friendly.
Hennessy. Have you
Yeah, that
watched
sounded kinda
Superstar? Have you watched Superstar, the Hennessy?
Nah. Oh, is that the one with the black people?
Yeah, the British.
Nah,
Pretty
you know,
good.
funny enough, Nathan kept begging me to watch that. He's like, yo, dog, we need to talk about that shit, dog.
Mason.
No. No.
What you said, Mason?
Can you imagine if Mason ever did that? Came through like, yo, dog.
Andrew's in there
arguing to say the N word.
With who?
Chillism.
Yeah, and chillism.
Somebody's got it.
I love that guy.
Yeah. It's funny, I was in a room with Concrete earlier and he was like, they were debating, like, apparently some chick got banned there for, like, saying someone, insulting someone's dead children or something. Oh, no, sorry. My mistake for doxing someone. Someone else got banned for insulting someone's dead wife, even. I was like, bro, now, all of a sudden now they have rules.
So
They have rules.
Is that too far for them?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Like
saying.
they pretend to not care. Oh my god, I hate these people.
something I did pretty offensive. There's this guy that was a Holocaust denier, and in the chat, he was like, also he mentioned that his son died. So I tried to be a denialist about his son dying. Just like everything he said about the Jews, I started saying about his
That's
son.
based.
Like, and
That's kind of
like,
harsh.
and he was like, oh, there's just like not enough evidence. And I was like, oh yeah, there's not enough evidence that your son
Oh,
died.
Sam,
Like,
Sam,
oh, the
that's
Jews
messed up.
use it to their benefit. And I was like, oh yeah, you're just using the sympathy of your made up son to get benefit. It's just like,
No,
everything
Sam.
had
That's, do you know how that's messed up? Like, his son actually died. Like,
That was funny.
okay, Toast, calm down. You hear Shane was today, and he was like, and trust me, I'm not what did he say? Like, I'm not skirting around the Holocaust denial, and then just went full blown Holocaust denial, like, started coming up with like alternative theories and shit, like.
He was like, why are you baiting me into doing this? Like, no one's making you do this, you fucking retard. It's like, are you baiting me into being a flat earther? No one's making you, fucking idiot.
Yo, he is an actual fucking pussy. Like, he literally could smash.
Yea, in that day shalt thou sing unto the Lord a new song, a song of rejoicing in his beautiful countenance, the face of thine own true self. Comment on resh. Resh pronounced resh, transcribed as the number 200, meaning face, the collective intelligence. The first section rehearses various names of Kefet, the crown. These are Resha Haora, Risha Hivira, the white head, Toth Zal, Zol, the profuse giver, Nakida Peshut, NQDHPSHVTH, the small point, and Olyun, OLI, the end, the most high. The end of the paragraph refers to the path of Resh, the 30th path of wisdom called the collective intelligence, which joins Hod, glory or splendor, to Yesod, foundation. Asiya is the lowest of the four Kabbalistic worlds. This section begins with the attribution of the physical sun. Yea, in that day shalt thou sing unto the Lord a new song, a song of rejoicing in his beautiful countenance, the face of thine own true self. Comment on resh. Resh pronounced resh, transcribed as the number 200, meaning face, the collective intelligence. The first section rehearses various names of Kefet, the crown. These are Resha Haora, Risha Hivira, the white head, Toth Zal, Zol, the profuse giver, Nakida Peshut, NQDHPSHVTH, the small point, and Olyun, OLI, the end, the most high. The end of the paragraph refers to the path of Resh, the 30th path of wisdom called the collective intelligence, which joins Hod, glory or splendor, to Yesod, foundation. Asiya is the lowest of the four Kabbalistic worlds. This section begins with the attribution of the physical sun. Yea, in that day shalt thou sing unto the Lord a new song, a song of rejoicing in his beautiful countenance, the face of thine own true self. Comment on resh. Resh pronounced resh, transcribed as the number 200, meaning face, the collective intelligence. The first section rehearses various names of Kefet, the crown. These are Resha Haora, Risha Hivira, the Whitehead, Talthazal, Zor, the profuse giver, Nakida Peshut, NQDHPSHVTH, the small point, and Olyun, OLI, the end, the most high. The end of the paragraph refers to the path of Resh, the 30th path of wisdom, called the collective intelligence, which joins Hod, glory or splendor, to Yesod, foundation. Asiya is the lowest of the four Kabbalistic worlds. This section begins with the attribution of the physical sun. Yea, in that day shalt thou sing unto the Lord a new song, a song of rejoicing in his beautiful. Again, it's more William James. The sounds, I hope, which I am uttering, should evoke from places in your memory that have nothing to do with this scene associates fitted to combine with them in what we call a rational train of thought. Rational because it leads to a conclusion which we have some organ to appreciate. We have no organ or faculty to appreciate the simply given order. The real world as it is given objectively at this moment is the sum total of all its beings and events now. But can we think of such a sum? Can we realize for an instant what a cross-section of all existence at a definite point in time would be? While I talk and the flies buzz, a seagull catches a fish at the mouth of the Amazon. A tree falls in the Adirondack wilderness, a man sneezes in Germany, a horse dies in Tartary. Twins are born in France, what does that mean? Does the contemporaneity of these events with one another, with a million others as disjointed, form a rational bond between them, and unite them into anything that means for us a world, yet just such a collateral contemporaneity, and nothing else, is the real order of the world. It is an order with which we have nothing to do but to get away from it as fast as possible. As I said, we break it into histories, and we break it into arts, and we break it into sciences, and then we begin to feel at home. We make 10,000 separate serial orders of it, and on any one of these we react as though the others did not exist. We discover among its various parts relations that were never given to sense at all. Mathematical relations, tangents, squares, and roots, and logarithmic functions. And out of an infinite number of these we call certain ones essential and law-giving, and ignore the rest. Essential these relations are, but only for our purpose, the other relations being just as real and present as they, and our purpose is to conceive simply and to foresee, and not simple conception and prevision, subjective ends pure and simple. They are the ends of what we call science, and the miracle of miracles, a miracle not yet exhaustively cleared up by any philosophy. They are the ends of what we call science, and the miracle of miracles, a miracle not yet exhaustively cleared up by any philosophy, is that the given order lends itself to the remodeling. It shows itself plastic to many of our scientific, to many of our aesthetic, to many of our practical purposes and ends. Determinism and chance. What does determinism profess? It professes that those parts of the universe already laid down absolutely appoint and decree what the other parts shall be. The future has no ambiguous possibilities hidden in its womb. The part we call the present is compatible with only one totality. Any other future complement than the one fixed from eternity is impossible. The whole is in each and every part and welds it with the rest into an absolute unity, an iron block, in which there can be no equivocation or shadow of turning. With earth's first clay they did the last man knead, and there of the last harvest sowed the seed. In the first morning of creation wrote. What we call science. With earth's first clay they did the last man knead, and there of the last harvest sowed the seed. In the first morning of creation wrote what the last dawn of reckoning shall read. Indeterminism, on the contrary, says that the parts have a certain amount of loose play on one another, so that the laying down of one of them does not necessarily determine what the others shall be. It admits that possibilities may in excess of actualities, and that things not yet revealed to our knowledge may really in themselves be ambiguous. Of two alternative futures which we conceive, both may now be really possible, and the one become impossible only at the very moment when the other excludes it by becoming real itself. Indeterminism thus denies the world to be one unbending unit of fact. It says there is a certain ultimate pluralism in it, and so saying it corroborates our ordinary unsophisticated view of things. To that view, actualities seem to float in a wider sea of possibilities from out of which they are chosen, and somewhere, indeterminism says, such possibilities exist and form a part of truth. Determinism, on the contrary, says they exist nowhere, and that necessity on the one hand and impossibility on the other are the sole categories of the real. Possibilities that fail to get realized are for determinism pure illusions. They never were possibilities at all. There is nothing inchoate, it says, about this universe of ours, all that was or is or shall be actual in it having been from eternity virtually there. The cloud of alternatives our minds escort this mass of actuality withal is a cloud of sheer deceptions, to which impossibilities is the only name that rightfully belongs. The issue, it will seem, is a perfectly sharp one, which no eulogistic terminology can smear over or wipe out. The truth must lie with one side or the other, and it's lying. To that view, actuality. The cloud of alternatives our minds escort this mass of actuality withal is a cloud of sheer deceptions, to which impossibilities is the only name that rightfully belongs. The issue, it will be seen, is a perfectly sharp one, which no eulogistic terminology can smear over or wipe out. The truth must lie with one side or the other, and its lying with one side makes the other side false. The question relates solely to the existence of possibilities in the strict sense of the term as things that may but need not be. Both sides admit that a volition, or for instance, has occurred. The indeterminists say another volition might have occurred in its place. The determinists swear that nothing could possibly have occurred in its place. Now can science be called in to tell us which of these two point-blank contradictions of each other is right? Science professes to draw no conclusions but such as are based on matters of fact. Things have actually happened, but how can any amount of assurance that something actually happened give us the least grain? The cloud of alternative. The least grain of information as to whether another thing might or might not have happened in its place. Only facts can be proved by other facts. With things that are possibilities and not facts, facts have no concern. If we have no other evidence than the evidence of existing facts, the possibility question must remain a mystery never to be cleared up. And the truth is that facts practically have hardly anything to do with making us either determinists or indeterminists. Sure enough, we make a flourish of quoting facts this way or that, and if we are determinists, we talk about the infallibility with which we can predict one another's conduct, while if we are indeterminists, we lay great stress on the fact that it is just because we cannot foretell one another's conduct, either in war or statecraft, or in any of the great and small intrigues and businesses of men, that life is so intensively anxious and hazardous a game. But who does not see the wretched insufficiency of this so-called objective testimony on both sides? The least grain of information. What fills up the gaps in our minds is something not objective, not external. What divides us into possibility men and anti-possibility men is different faiths or postulates of rationality. To this man, the world seems more rational with possibilities in it. To that man, more rational with possibilities excluded. And talk as we will about having to yield to evidence, what makes us monists and pluralists, determinists or indeterminists, is at bottom always some sentiment like this. The stronghold of the deterministic sentiment is the antipathy to the idea of chance. As soon as we begin to talk in determinism to our friends, we find a number of them shaking their heads. This notion of alternative possibility, they say, this admission that any one of several things may come to pass is, after all, only a roundabout name for chance, and chance is something the notion of which no sane mind can for an instant tolerate in the world. What is it, they ask, but barefaced crazy unreason, the negation of intelligibility and law? Fills up the gaps in our minds. This notion of alternative possibility, they say, is this admission that any one of several things may come to pass is, after all, only a roundabout name for chance, and chance is something the notion of which no sane mind can for an instant tolerate in the world. What is it, they ask, but barefaced crazy unreason, the negation of intelligibility and law? And if the slightest particle of it exists anywhere, what is to prevent the whole fabric from falling together, the stars from going out, and chaos from recommencing her topsy-turvy reign? Remarks of this sort about chance will put an end to discussion as quickly as anything one can find. I have already told you that chance was a word I wish to keep and use. Let us then examine exactly what it means and see whether it ought to be such a terrible bugbear to us. I fancy that squeezing the thistle boldly will rob it of its sting. The sting of the word chance seems to lie in the assumption that it means something positive, and that if anything happens by chance, it must needs be something of an intrinsically irrational and preposterous sort. This notion of alternative possibility, they say, is this admission that anyone... Now, chance means nothing of the kind. It is a purely negative and relative term, giving us no information about that of which it is predicated, except that it happens to be disconnected with something else, not controlled, secured, or necessitated by other things in advance of its own actual presence. What I say is that it tells us nothing about what a thing may be in itself to call it chance. It may be a bad thing, it may be a good thing, it may be lucidity, transparency, fitness incarnate, matching the whole system of other things, when it has once befallen in an ambiguous and in an unimaginably perfect way. All you mean by calling it chance is that this is not guaranteed, that it may also fall out otherwise, for the system of other things has no positive hold on the chance thing. Its origin is in a certain fashion negative. It escapes and says, hands off, coming when it comes as a free gift or not at all. Thoughts and things. The problem convenient to take up next in order will be that of the difference between thoughts and things. Things are known to us by our senses, and are called presentations by some authors to distinguish them from the ideas or representations which we may have when our senses are closed. I myself have grown accustomed to the words percept and concept in treating of the contrast, but concepts flow out of percepts and into them again. They are so interlaced, and our life rests on them so interchangeably and undiscriminatingly, that it is often difficult to impart quickly to beginners a clear notion of the difference meant. Sensation and thought in man are mingled, but they vary independently. In our quadrupedal relatives, thought proper is at a minimum, but we have no reason to suppose that their immediate life of feeling is either less or more copious than ours. Feeling must have been originally self-sufficing, and thought appears as a superadded function. And thought appears as a superadded function, adapting us to a wider environment than that of which brutes take account. Some parts of the stream of feeling must be more intense, emphatic, and exciting than others in animals as well as in ourselves. But whereas lower animals simply react upon these more salient sensations by appropriate movements, higher animals remember them and men react on them intellectually by using nouns, adjectives, and verbs to identify them when they meet them elsewhere. The great difference between percepts and concepts is that percepts are continuous and concepts are discrete. Not discrete in their being, for conception as an act is part of the flux of feeling, but discrete from each other in their several meanings. Each concept means just what it singly means, and nothing else. And if the conceiver does not know whether he means this or means that, it shows that his concept is imperfectly formed. And thought appears as it. The perceptual flux, as such, on the contrary, means nothing, and is but what it immediately is. No matter how small or attractive it be taken, it is always a much at once, and contains innumerable aspects and characters which conception can pick out, isolate, and thereafter always intend. It shows duration, intensity, complexity, or simplicity, interestingness, excitingness, pleasantness, or their opposites. Data from all our senses entered into it, merged in a general extensiveness of which each occupies a big or little share. Yet all these parts leave its unity unbroken. Its boundaries are no more distinct than those of the field of vision. Boundaries are things that intervene, but here nothing intervenes save parts of the perceptual flux itself, and these are overflowed by what they separate, so that whatever we distinguish and isolate conceptually flux as no matter how small or attractive it be taken, it is always a much at once, and contains innumerable aspects and characters which conception can pick out, isolate, and thereafter always intend. It shows duration, intensity, complexity or simplicity, interestingness, excitingness, pleasantness, or their opposites. Data from all our senses enter into it, merged in a general extensiveness of which each occupies a big or little share. Yet all these parts leave its unity unbroken. Its boundaries are no more distinct than are those of the field of vision. Boundaries are things that intervene, but here nothing intervenes save parts of the perceptual flux itself, and these are overflowed by what they separate, so that whatever we distinguish and isolate conceptually is found perceptually to telescope and come penetrate and diffuse into its neighbors. The cuts we make are purely ideal. If my reader can succeed in abstracting from all conceptual interpretation and lapse back into his immediate sensible life at this very moment, no matter how small or attractive it be taken. If my reader can succeed in abstracting from all conceptual interpretation and lapse back into his immediate sensible life at this very moment, he will find it to be what someone has called a big, blooming, buzzing confusion, is free from contradiction in its much at onceness, as it is all alive and evidently there. Out of this aboriginal sensible muchness, attention carves out objects which conception then names and identifies forever in the sky, constellations on the earth, beach, sea, cliff, bushes, grass. Out of time we cut days and nights, summers and winters. We say what each part of the sensible continuum is, and all these abstracted whats are concepts. The intellectual life of man consists almost wholly in his substitution of a conceptual order for the perceptual order in which his experience originally comes. But before tracing the consequences of the substitution, I must say something about the conceptual order itself. If a reader can succeed in abstract trains of concepts unmixed with percepts grow frequently in the adult mind, and parts of these conceptual trains arrest our attention just as parts of the perceptual floated, giving rise to concepts of a higher order of abstractness. So subtle is the discernment of man so great the power of some men to single out the most fugitive elements of what passes before them, that these new formations have no limit, aspect within aspect, quality after quality, relation upon relation, absences and negations as well as present features, and by being noted and the names added to the store of nouns, verbs, adjectives, conjunctions, and prepositions by which the human mind interprets life. Every new book verbalizes some new concept, which becomes important in proportion to the use that can be made of it. Different universes of thought thus arise with specific sorts of relation among their ingredients. The world of common sense things, the world of material tasks to be done, the mathematical world of pure forms. Concepts unmixed with the world of ethical propositions, the worlds of logic, of music, all abstracted and generalized from long-forgotten perceptual instances from which they have, as it were, thrown out, return and merge themselves again in the particulars of our present and future perception. By those whats we apperceive all our theses, percepts, and concepts interpenetrate and melt together, impregnate and fertilize each other. Neither taken alone knows reality in its completeness. We need them both, as we need both our legs to walk with. From Aristotle downwards, philosophers have frankly admitted the indispensability for complete knowledge of fact of both the sensational and the intellectual contribution. For complete knowledge of fact, I say. But facts are particulars and connect themselves with practical necessities and the arts, and Greek philosophers soon formed the notion that a knowledge of so-called universals, consisting of concepts of abstract forms, qualities, numbers, and relations, was the only knowledge worthy of the truly philosophic mind.
Looking for something what?
Further.
Further than bad? What do you
Yeah,
mean?
so like, okay, the dog gets hurt, and you're like, okay, well, that actually is like gotta lead to some other effects.
Yes.
And then you look to those effects, and then you're gonna like, how do I determine if those are bad? Well, I gotta look from those effects. And then you're gonna keep looking for effects. Where, at what point are you gonna find the bad?
Right. If I'm characterizing bad and good as like in alignment with the universe, to me there's like a pocket of effects that you can see would have happened if the bad thing occurred and would not have happened if the bad thing didn't occur. And you can just sort of like take a look and see, is that the universe you would prefer or not?
I'm gonna bang my head against the wall right now. You tell me if that was bad. Okay, right? I'm gonna do it. You can probably even hear it.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
No.
Was that bad? I'm kind of in pain. I'm in pain. I can feel it. It hurts. Was that bad?
I guess that's for you to say.
It hurts. I don't prefer this pain.
How about this? If you prove your point, would it have been good?
I'm not even trying to prove a point. I'm just like, your view, like, look, the way that I think something's bad is like there might be some things that I look further to, like, because maybe in itself is not bad. But there are some things I think just on their own are bad. I don't need to look any further. That's my view. For you, it seems like you're going to be constantly looking for something, and then you'll never get to the quote-unquote bad.
How do you mean? Like, I'm characterizing the bad as an assessment of things misaligned with the universe, and I don't think it's like you need to do the examination. I just think like
Because they need
you
to
can
be misaligned with the universe. What does that mean?
misaligned with the universe.
What is it like?
Yeah, what does that
What does that look like? Like, how do I know what things are
how
aligned
about-
or not?
Impeding the general trend of reality.
Oh my god.
But
Well,
based on your position, I don't think you're equipped to make that determination if time, the temporal element is kind of irrelevant to your assessment. You mean if at all times is to be factored in. You could never have the requisite knowledge to determine good or bad, alignment with the universe.
This is the whole way out of physics, right? Like, instead of saying that just because the beings who are suffering are like causally isolated from us, that we can't interact with them, that it doesn't matter that they're suffering. That it's like totally, it's not an issue of right or wrong, or good or bad, to like bring about that state of affairs. Just like
I don't know.
there's clearly somebody who just wants to hear themselves speaking. Like, you're not thinking at all.
No, why would it matter?
I don't think he wants to hear himself speaking. I just thinks that, like, for him, what matters is stuff that he has, like, some causal influence over, or some sort of, like, if it's like, if there's suffering happening in some galaxy far away, that just, like, doesn't matter. Is that your view?
Yeah, why would that matter?
Well, I just...
Yeah, but what I gave him once where it's like it is causally effective, and it's like it matters if it's out of alignment with the universe.
Well,
Is
let's
it
go
okay
back.
to make that? Let's say it'll just never have any influence on your life, right? You'll never know it. You can push a button, right? And it will cause like 10 children to develop leukemia in some country across the world. You don't even know where they are, okay? All you know is that it will cause 10 children to have leukemia, okay? That's it. That's all it's going to do.
Yeah, that's still bad.
Right. Now, why would it matter if those 10 children were in the Andromeda Galaxy?
Well, for one thing, there'd be less order effects that I could see. So I would be more like agnostic.
No, you're not seeing anything. You're not seeing anything. You just know that 10 children will get leukemia when you press the button.
I mean, that's an annoying thing to know. And I get like the ice cream cone too.
Yeah, so you see how this person like just wants to talk and hear themselves speak and not actually think about what they're doing.
At least that was a little funny.
No, I think the whole thing is silly. All these like imagined worlds of alternatives. Like the effects are there. You see it when you press the button.
But I thought
No, you don't see. That was like what I said actually, is that you don't see anything. You know it happened.
In reality, you always see it.
You don't see everything in reality, makes it.
We see everything that we usually see.
So what if, like, before,
Yes, you
before the
do
internet,
indeed see the things you see, but there's things that are real that you don't see, right?
Are you saying that the only bad things that are happening are the ones that you're aware of?
I'm saying I can't speak intelligently about the things that I'm not aware of.
Well, I mean, like, obviously there's a level of, like, unknownness, but, like, I probably am not aware of, like, specifics about bad things I think are probably happening in Africa. But I think there probably still is, like, bad things occurring, even though I don't know much about the specifics. In a lot of places. You think that's weird?
I'm not exactly getting your analogy to knowledge of atrocities.
I don't think I'm giving you an analogy. I'm just saying I think that there's bad things that happen. I don't really know much about them.
Yes, there are probably infinite.
This notion of alternative possibility, they say, is this admission that any one of several things may come to pass is, after all, only a roundabout name for chance, and chance is something, the notion of which no sane mind can for an instant tolerate in the world. What is it, they ask, but barefaced crazy unreason, the negation of intelligibility and law? And if the slightest particle of it exists anywhere, what is to prevent the whole fabric from falling together, the stars from going out, and chaos from recommencing her topsy-turvy reign? Remarks of this sort about chance will put an end to discussion as quickly as anything one can find. I have already told you that chance was a word I wish to keep and use. Let us then examine exactly what it means and see whether it ought to be such a terrible bugbear to us. I fancy that squeezing the thistle boldly will rob it of its sting. The sting of the word chance seems to lie in the assumption that it means something positive, and that if anything happens by chance, it must needs be some. This notion of alternative possibility, they say, is this admission that any one of several things may come to pass is, after all, only a roundabout name for chance. And chance is something, the notion of which no sane mind can for an instant tolerate in the world. What is it, they ask, but barefaced crazy unreason, the negation of intelligibility and law? And if the slightest particle of it exists anywhere, what is to prevent the whole fabric from falling together, the stars from going out, and chaos from recommencing her topsy-turvy?